Let's do this. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Pros and Cons. Manchester United travelled to Turkey yesterday to play in a stadium where we have never won before. The atmosphere was hostile as fuck, and the pitch was wetter than a cup of tea that had been left in the rain. But it was set up for a jam-packed game, and that is exactly what we got. It'll be one to remember for the neutrals, but unfortunately for us, not so good. So, look, as always, United, there's plenty of negatives and a few positives that we could talk about. So, let's kick things off with, well, two bad mistakes. So, the game plan from the start went to plan. We had scored two relatively early goals. I think within 18 minutes of the match, there was a goal from Bruno, fantastic goal, and a goal from Alejandro Garnacho as well. But still, speaking from my perspective and just watching that game, I still did not feel comfortable because history has shown in this group stage against Copenhagen, even in the game at Old Trafford, we can go up, we could still concede just as many. We are just as open, and we had the exact same situation in this game as well. You could just see it coming in my eyes. So I was never comfortable watching this. And almost 10 minutes later, Galatasaray get a turnover. McTominay doesn't track back, leaving Bruno Fernandes to kind of do a last-ditch tackle, which then gives away the free kick on the edge of the box. And you're like, right, okay, Ziyech can be dangerous from this. But you would like to think ONANA's probably got this. Not the end of the world. We're still winning. And then he puts the wall is questionable. I don't know what's going on in the first place. But ONANA takes a step to his left. And then as soon as he does that, he gives himself no chance. So they get back into the game. It's 2-1. 10 minutes later, they get a free kick again from a Bruno foul, which was cynical. And then this one was the really bad one. Ziyech hits it, similar fashion, I would say. Not too much height on it. Kind of mid-level. Just has another pop again because he thought, right, the keeper obviously looks nervous. Let's have another pop. And I can't explain what that save was. I really, really can't. It looks so odd. It looked like a proper amateur save. Like, you know, when a kid comes to collect it Sunday, you know, dog and duck versus Parkwood. And it just did not look comfortable at all. And again, this isn't the first time he's done it. And it might sound harsh, but I can categorically say ONANA has single-handedly knocked us out of the Champions League with them two big mistakes. Even the third goal that they scored, he's not covering himself in glory because he's not near his front post. He's not guarding that there, and that's exactly where it goes in. So, for some reason in Europe, I don't know what it is. He's looked like an absolute nervous wreck. We've conceded 14 goals in this group stage, which is the most from any English team ever. And so far this season, Ronaldo's conceded 33 goals, which is half of David De Gea's tally already. So, the question is, does this situation turn into what happened with Pep and Bravo, and do we go get a new keeper in the summer? Or does Erik ten Hag stick with him, proceed with him, and have patience and feel like he's going to come good? Because we've seen goalkeepers come and go at this club. You know, we've really, really struggled. Bosnich, Bartes, many others. My patience, I was a little bit reactionary last night. I was going mad, but I think my patience has run out with him. I have to be honest. I just, because he's why we're out the Champions League. Call a spade a spade. I hope he succeeds, but for me, I'm done with him at the minute. I'm willing to be proved wrong. What the fuck does McTominay actually do? He made some good forward runs during the game. Obviously got on the score sheet, which people will be raving about. But what does he actually do apart from that? What's he actually good at? Leave it in the comment section. Please tell me what Scott McTominay is good at, because he isn't good on the ball. From a technical perspective, he doesn't have a footballing brain. He isn't great at defending, and yet he's still starting every single game. But then you're like, well, who else could play there in the midfield? The only ones that were on the bench last night was, Hannibal? Something like that. Who else could play there? That's the big question. There is no one. Eriksen's out. Casemiro's out. So I said last night in the review, I feel like Erik ten Hag is playing him, or was playing him there, because our attackers weren't scoring and he was. So at least the goals are coming from somewhere. But most people agreed as well that at the start of the game, they should have started Mainu, young kid, Galatasaray, pressure cooker. I felt like a lot of people felt that was the right decision, and Ten Hag explained his reasons for this. So we're stuck with Scott for a bit, to be honest, for the next couple of weeks, unless Kobe Mainoo starts getting regular minutes and he trusts him a bit more. And I won't be opposed to that, because I think Kobe Mainoo's a talented kid. I just think it doesn't work systematically in the midfield. Amrabat was left isolated a lot of the times. There was a lot of space, and when you're playing a deep line, it's just a huge gap in midfield. Like, you could pause it at a lot of moments in the game and you would just see this giant gap again. And you have to play your system based on players that you have. You can't play a high line with Harry Maguire. There's many faults within the system, and there was a lot of space, but it was way too easy to cut through. And the whole reason why Ziyech shot and scored that free kick was because McTominay didn't track him as well. So let's not forget that. His defensive awareness isn't great. Lack of character and composure in Europe again. In what feels like every single game in Europe, just reflect on our campaign. We score, and as soon as we score, we concede. Maybe not as quick this time. Usually it's within 6-minute mark, but you just felt like for the full game, regardless of whatever situation it was, even when we was 3-1 up when McTominay scored in the second half, right, you just thought, it's not safe. You never felt safe, like a broken condom. Never felt safe. And it was a test of our character, and we didn't turn up. I just think from that moment I mentioned there, when you're 3-1 up, McTominay's just scored. You're looking at the TV, and as a fan, you're screaming, saying, "Stop going fucking long, keep hold of the ball, slow things down, and let's control this game." And it was just like, nope, we're just gonna basketball game it end to end, and let's see who wins. And no one came out the winner because it ended up as a draw. For me, it's simple game management. It's simple game management. This is what I'm talking about when I say some of these football players on the pitch, they lack intelligence. They don't know when to keep hold of the ball. They don't know when to make a run. They don't know when to, like... Is some of that coming from the coach? I mean, he has to be criticised for some of it. For certain players that he's picking, for players that he's brought in. But again, these players have shown these patterns of behaviour consistently under previous managers. Missing big chances again. Whilst we're on the topic of themes and things consistently happening, this season, the amount of big chances that we are missing, even you can go right back to the start against Tottenham, Wolves, whoever, and despite us scoring 3 goals last night, it could have been 8. Pellistri and Martial in particular towards the end, missing huge chances. The decision-making in the final third, there's times where Shaw was overlapping, Pellistri didn't see him. Martial could have played Bruno in, Scott could have played Martial in. Like, a lot of opportunities where easy goals there, where City will play that extra pass. They'll get to the byline line and square it and score, and we don't do that. A lot of our play is selfish. So when you can't kill a game off, the opportunity will always be there, especially against us in Europe. And I just think it's a combination of things that throughout the pitch. But that one in particular for me, missing the big chances, has been horrendous all season. We are now pretty much out of the Champions League. In the last game in the group stage, we have to beat Bayern Munich, and has to be a draw in the Copenhagen and Galatasaray game in order for us to qualify for the knockout stages, which basically means we either drop into the Europa League or just out of European football in total. And I said yesterday, I don't want us to be in the Europa League because I hate the Thursday nights. I hate the tournament in general. I think we just need to focus on the league and the FA Cup. But obviously, from a financial perspective for Manchester United, they're going to want to be in Europe. For Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who's taken over, or the 25% minority investment, that's going to be huge money-wise. So obviously, they're going to want to be dropping into that. I think if you finish third, you drop into the Europa League. But if you finish fourth, you'll completely go out. So yeah, we could qualify, we could go into Europa, and we could still get knocked out fully. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the last game. Okay then, what positives do we have? Garnacho is starting to become consistent in his performances. After his world-class goal on the weekend against Everton, it was Garnacho again who opened the scoring for Manchester United early in the game. Not quite the bicycle kick that he scored against Everton, but it was still a fantastic goal on his weak foot, and did a cold celebration in front of the Turkish fans, which is obviously winding him up. And after a relatively slow start to the season for Garnacho, I think he's starting to get into his groove now. He's starting to score important goals for the club as he kind of continues his development on that left wing, which will only fill Erik ten Hag with confidence because his star man, Marcus Rashford, has been completely off it. So for me personally, I'm starting Garnacho there on the left. I don't care. Rashford's out of form. He's not he's not in his groove at all, you know, whether you play him on the right, left, or as a striker. So Garnacho has to start, and you have to persist with his kick because he's a special talent. Harry Maguire continues his good form. We had another solid display from the former captain last night. I thought defensively he was sound. His aerial ability we know was fantastic. His reading of the game, his calmness and composure, which hasn't always been an asset for him, I thought was really, really good. He's just been nominated for Premier League Player of the Month as well, so he is well and truly bounced back from strong critics and strong opinions in a hectic game. Like I said, I thought him and Luke Shaw in particular kept their heads, was showing leadership, but unfortunately due to the nature of the game, the deep line that I mentioned before and the way the midfield was, it was always going to be attacked end to end. And I think it was like 33 shots in total in the game. It was just utter madness. But again, I don't think... It's weird because I don't think some of the defenders had a bad game. I thought Wan-Bissaka was okay until he went off. Dalot looked a bit shaky against Zaha. I thought Maguire looked fine. Shaw was good. Lindelof wasn't great and Onana wasn't great in that back five. But three out of five were okay, I thought. Bruno Fernandes is starting to perform much better. I've been crying out every single week on this pros and cons about him not turning up and not showing up. And in a very, very hostile atmosphere last night, a pressure cooker, you know, he's got a team that isn't necessarily full of leaders. A lot of pressure's on him. He scores a rocket of a goal. He assists Garnacho's goal as well. Gave away 2 silly fouls, but let's not forget, like I mentioned, one of them was simply because McTominay didn't track his runner, and he was absolutely livid with that. And then from a statistical point of view, 3 key passes, 1 big chance created, 4 out of 7 ground duels, 3 tackles, 1 interception, and 3 tackles. I've already mentioned that, sorry. And I thought he showed character, like I said, in a very tough atmosphere. Again, unfortunately, this will be overshadowed by Onana's mistakes, but it was much better from Bruno in respect to what he had been doing for the majority of the season. What is the conclusion? Look, all in all, it's been a very disappointing season for Man United. You almost feel like it's November and it's already over. I know we've got the FA Cup and we've got the league, and some people say, well, maybe we could just focus on the league now if we go out of Europe entirely. But, you know, knowing United will probably end up in the Europa League, going out in the semi-finals. It's just the hope that kills you as a fan, because when you look at last season, you look like, right, we're ready to build on this now. You finish third, and you win a trophy, and you're like, well, what's next? Compete for a title? Win a trophy again? Or maybe just go far in Europe, showcase something? And it just simply hasn't worked out like that. And we've regressed, if anything. Is some of it on the manager? Absolutely. Is a lot of it, you know, from above and everything that's going on above? Absolutely. Is there a lot of it on individual players not taking the chances, making mistakes? Absolutely. Is it on injuries? Of course. You know, there's a lot of circumstances which have led us to this point. And I think at the end of the season, we could really look back at it and do a deep, detailed analysis, because it's been that hectic. It's kind of hard to pinpoint everything at the moment, but there is certainly been a number of things which have led to our downfall. And I think missing big, key, important players has obviously been huge. And I think things off the pitch as well, not just the Glazers, but, you know, everything that's been going on has been an absolute distraction. So, look, we're probably going out of Europe, which means we could just focus on the league now. We've got Newcastle coming up at the weekend, which is another hostile atmosphere. We got 1 win against Everton, a draw against Galatasaray, which should have been a win, and then we would have been full of beans going to Newcastle. You know, we've just lost to PSG. They're a bit defeated. They've got injury problems themselves, but now I'm looking at that game, and I'm like, that's an extremely tough game. I mean, look what their B team did to us in the Carabao Cup at Old Trafford. They destroyed us. So I'm not feeling very positive heading to that one, but we've got to start getting points on the board. So I'm praying we put some form of a performance in, but just have to wait and see. Make sure you do tune in for the preview tonight, by the way. We'll be discussing that game in depth, me and the lads on the channel at around 7 o'clock, so make sure you tune in for that. Please do leave a like on the video if you've enjoyed this one. Sorry about my voice and my throat. A little bit nasally today, coming down with a cold, but, you know, the content has to be done. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave your comments in and your thoughts about the game, in particular, what players you would drop, how you feel about Onana, and whatever opinions you kind of have. And, yeah, I suppose we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. See you in a bit.